Welcome to Barn Banter, the podcast by Horse Illustrated. Each month, we bring guests to educate, entertain, or inspire you as you pursue the horsey lifestyle, plus an adoptable horse with a unique story. I'm Susan Friedland, an equestrian author, blogger, and speaker with a soft spot for off-track thoroughbreds. You can find me at my blog, saddleseekshorse.com, or on Facebook or Instagram at saddleseekshorse.
And I'm Holly Kakanis, editor-in-chief of Horse Illustrated and Young Rider magazines. You can find us at horseillustrated.com, youngrider.com, and Horse Illustrated and Young Rider on Instagram and Facebook.
Hey, Holly. Happy December. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, what is the temperature where you are in beautiful Orange County, California?
Okay, let me look at my Apple Watch. 67 degrees, and it is 10:30 a.m.
Okay, I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
Oh, no.
It's snowing. There is snow all on the roads are clear, but they're slushy. But I'm looking out the window of the office to the neighbor's yard, and it is a complete blanket of white.
Oh, see, I miss that. I love looking at the snow. I feel like it's not cold if there's snow on the ground. I know that doesn't make any sense, but I always hated if it was just freezing and gray and drizzly and icy. But the snow.
Okay, that is true.
Yeah, I miss this.
Well, so here's the thing. I see we had Shelley Paulson on as a guest. I think our first episode, and she's an amazing photographer and she lives in Minnesota. And I see these pictures. She has these magical shots of horses in snow. And so I had this idea last winter that I was going to get a photo of my horse in snow with my iPhone. And what I realized is that generally, because I don't live where Night lives, by the time I get out to the perfect pasture, it's not a perfect pasture anymore.
No.
There's hoof prints in it, and it's maybe, I don't know, it's just not that magical.
And I'll make you feel a little better because I think that iPhones take terrible pictures of horses. I said what I said. I feel like every time it just distorts. Their heads look gigantic and their body looks like a tiny little stick. So I don't think, it's nice to have them, but I just never have been able to take good horse pictures on my iPhone. And what's crazy is Shelley was just telling me, I can't even remember if it was last winter, it almost didn't snow all winter in Minnesota. And then in March or something crazy, they had 2 feet or a foot of snow come down. Finally, she had the perfect setting to go shoot all of her new snow pictures, right at the end. So that was wild. But yeah, we always use her snow covers for Young Rider. So she had been having this kid on standby that had a Frisian or something.
Oh, really?
Get a nice Young Rider cover because she knows we're going to need that snow cover with a kid and this cute horse. So it worked out, but at the very end. So we use that for this current winter. So, yeah.
Well, I love hearing kind of the behind the scenes of the perfect photo,
the magic.
That there's all magic. Yeah, it is magic.
It is. Well, I don't envy them. They're always, yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. I think the first thing I want to know, because I'm jealous I didn't go, is how was Equine Affair Massachusetts? You're recently back from that.
It was awesome. And I met someone who listens to Barn Banter.
Oh.
She came up to me. I was signing books at the Tiverton Equine booth book, and I have my little Misty statue there that's a life-size Billy. And she said, I listened to your show. And that's the first time I've ever had someone tell me that, other than people I know who are being nice listening to the show. So that was really cool. So Equine Affair was fabulous. I had a dill pickle pizza slice before I went to the Fantasia, which is the evening extravaganza.
I love the Fantasia. I've been once in Ohio, but why are they putting dill pickles on a pizza? That sounds...
Okay, well, Fantasia is not Equine Affair's function. It is so Sorry, I was just explaining the chronology of my evening. I had to have a little bite to eat.
You threw me off the track here with this dill pickle pizza.
Okay. So I was kind of excited to have pizza because, I'm a Chicago girl. I love my pizza. And I went up and they had like pizza by the slice. And the person ahead of me was getting dill pickle pizza. And I like dill pickles, and Trader Joe's used to have dill pickle popcorn. I don't know if you've had that. It's pretty tasty. So I like the dill flavor Oh, okay. So then you would have not liked the pizza.
That's why I'm wondering. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, so I got it, and I think it had ranch on it, ranch dressing. It was okay. It wasn't weird and gross, but it was just like, oh, okay, it's a dill pickle pizza. It didn't have red sauce that I remember. But yeah, so it was all right. I kind of had wished that I had gotten just like a basic cheese. The crust was really good. But the reason I got it is the man at the stand, so this is at the Eastern States, basically fairgrounds. And so the little food vendors are like, I'm assuming the state fair food vendors.
Oh, because I am a big fan of the fair, and they do have weird food at the fair.
Yeah. And he said, because I was like, I don't know, should I get it? Asking the guy who was serving up the pizza. And he said, well, in the summer, there is a long line to the stand. And he pointed like across the parking lot how far the line would stretch out. I'm like, okay, well, if all those people stand in line when it's probably really hot out to get the pizza, I should try. So there was that. But then the Fantasia was incredible. And there were so many just fun moments. There was a Grand Prix dressage rider. I don't remember her name, sorry to say, but she was doing a freestyle to kind of a mashup of like rap hip hop songs. And there was this one point where, and she was had like a gold jacket on. I mean, she was really hip hop. And so she was doing tempi changes across the diagonal and like dropped the reins of the double bridle. And it had, like has her hands out, like, and I'm just watching like, oh my gosh, like I am such a mediocre equestrian.
I can't even pick up a canter really without the horse falling apart. So that's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And then there was a team of 6 Percheron horses that came in, and they're so majestic, and their little short tails and the red ribbon, and they're trotting around, and you can kind of hear the jingling of I don't even know, the harness.
Oh, we just did the Percheron in our November-December issue, and we had a whole thing about the Ames Percherons and how they drive that big, like 6 and 8 horse hitch, and pictures of, so beautiful.
Oh, well, maybe I saw those horses.
It might have been,
but so then they were going around, and then all of a sudden there was a 6-horse, miniature horse hitch that came in. And so they it was like sort of like a dance off. It was like a 6-horse hitch off. So all black miniature horses. And then they were kind of trotting, and the Percheron were on the other side. And it was just so adorable and cute and cool. Then there was a trick rider troupe. And I mean, that's just fun. You see these people like bouncing off the horse and bouncing right back on the horse. And then this guy had flowing Fabio locks. And then there was one point in the show where he put his hair in a man bun. And I'm like, oh, it's getting serious. He's got the man bun. And he did, I don't know the name of it, but like where you're atop the horse. And then as they're cantering around the circle, you like go under, you flip under, and you crawl up. And I don't know what it's called, but it was cool. Death defying for sure. And then they had an adorable troupe of like teen and tween, I think they were all girls, with miniature horses in hand. And they're called something, I don't know, I should have looked in the program, but I think there were about 12 of the miniature horses. And so they were doing little routines. It was like a drill team, but in hand. And so that was adorable. And they had little jumps set up. And so they were like running and leaping over the jumps. And like the girls had their hand up in the air as they're jumping over with And so that was fun. And then there were some Liberty demonstrations that were really neat. And then the kind of end was Guy McLean. And he was doing this homage to the man from Snowy River. And
everyone loves that.
Australia. Oh, yeah. Well, I was kind of like, okay, how is he going to do that iconic, where the guy comes down the side of the hill? But he didn't do that. But what he did, which was, I had never seen this before. So he was on his one horse riding, and then there were 3 horses at Liberty, and he set up the 3 horses that were at Liberty to stand like in the shape of barrels for barrel racing. So he like barrel raced around the 3 horses. And then toward the end, like the finale was, he had one of the horses lying down on the ground, and then his horse and the 2 at Liberty that were standing were like all kind of side to side, and they all side passed over the horse that was lying down on the ground.
Whoa.
So that was pretty cool. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm trying to teach Knight how to side pass over one pole, and he's having just like he's very black and white thinking, like, this is a pole. I trot over the pole. I go forward in the center over the pole. And so when I was trying to get him you could just tell he was like getting weird, not upset and not like acting out, but it was just like his brain couldn't process what I was asking him to do. So, anyway,
it's amazing when you see stuff like that. Like I went to the Cavalia Odisseo show when it was here in SoCal, and it's like, I can't believe the things that are possible for horses to do, because I am just like struggle bus to, have a nice transition, and I can barely do that. So it's incredible, but it's inspiring. So I think, the more we see that, and keep in mind, these animals are incredible and they can do amazing things. It's good to see. So, yeah. Susan, I did want to ask you, with holidays coming up, lots of gifts coming up, how do you feel about gift giving? Are you someone who gets really into it and likes it, or is it just like a stressful chore for you? I need to know.
I like it. There are certain people that I enjoy gift giving for better. People that I think some people are hard. I'm not going to name names of my family members that kind of have everything, or if they don't have it, they'll just get it for themselves. But, I feel like the November Equine Affair is such a shopping event, and, horse people love to shop. And this is funny. I don't think I'm evading your question, but I saw people walking around with like lunge whips and stuff. And I'm thinking, like, that's you're kind of committed, kind of like, winning an animal at the carnival, like a big stuffed animal. You got to carry that around the lunge whip.
That's true.
But I like gifting. I like wrapping gifts and making them look really pretty. I like a classy gift bag with the tissue paper placed.
You're an artiste.
Yeah, I like to wrap and then have a really pretty ribbon. So I'm biased. I think books make great gifts, and I think my books especially make great gifts.
I think magazines make a great gift too, especially, our young rider subscriptions for horse crazy kids ages 8 to 15. They like go through the roof around the holiday time. That is like, people just come in and get those kids young rider subscriptions like out the wazoo. So if that gives anyone a little idea, or your horse crazy friend that might be an adult or older, we have it'll email the person that gets the gift to tell them, you've gotten a gift from so and so. Your first issue will come, whenever, because it's not going to come like instantly. But I think now they're sending like the previous digital, so somebody has like something right there to get them started. But yeah, I think magazines are nice because they are like at that great price point that's about, on the lower end, and it's all year they are reminded of you and your gift. So I think that's a little shout out. But yeah, I'm more of a person who gets very stressed out by gifts. Like, unless it's somebody like my kid is easy to shop for. Obviously, kids are easy and they love everything. Mm-hmm. But oh my gosh, like my parents, what do they need? Like they just have everything. So that kind of thing always seems stressful. But and my husband and I are both like totally in the same boat where we go shopping. We like to shop. We like to just go, oh, hey, I found something great, buy it. And then we take turns. We like split up the stuff, throughout November, December, wrap it, put it under the tree. The person knows what all the stuff is going to be already, but it's still a nice gift under the tree when it comes time for gift opening. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You already know what you're getting from your husband.
Oh yeah, but I'm so just a practical person. I don't want someone to spend a single dollar that I am not going to enjoy because that makes me sad. Like, oh, you got me something and I don't know what to do with this. Or, just more stuff in the house. Like we were talking about, people that live in small places. It's hard to find stuff. So experiences, consumables, all of those I think are great. Gift cards, I do like those. But that brings me to our guest that's coming on today, Cathy Woods, and she has some great tips for gift giving. She is a yoga instructor and equestrian, the author of Yoga for Riders, and she has some really good tips. She did an article in Horse Illustrated November, December about outside the box ideas. And those could be for the equestrians in your life or kind of give you ideas for just about anyone on your list. So we've got Cathy coming on, so stay tuned for that. For special rates on Horse Illustrated and Young Rider magazine subscriptions just for our podcast listeners, visit horseillustrated.com/barnbanter.
Hey, Cathy. Thank you for joining Holly and me here today. We're really excited to have you on our show. And how are you doing this morning?
I'm good, Susan, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm really looking forward to this and talking to your audience about all kinds of all things equestrian. So thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, Cathy, I feel like I should know you, but this is the first time we've had a chance to talk. You've written many articles over the years for Horse Illustrated, and so you're a very familiar name to me. But in order to get to know you better, I reached out to someone who I believe knows you well, Heather Wallace, who was on our podcast a couple episodes ago. And I told her, I'm having Cathy on the show. What should I ask her about? And she sent me a text and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like, we could talk for a very long time, probably not about your recent article or yoga. But she said she's a backcountry rider and she used to help clear trails in the Appalachian Mountains. She also used to work with monkeys and be a ballet dancer. So I don't even know where to start. Maybe with the monkey. Please tell us more about your background.
Oh, goodness. Well, let me tell you about the trail riding first. So my background in horsemanship is I am basically a self-taught, but very, very long time backcountry trail rider. And what that means is I usually don't go out for the little, hour ride. When my horses were in their younger day, we would do minimum 3-hour rides, multiple overnight rides and pack trips. And I was part of the Backcountry Horsemen's of America Association, and we used to do trail clearing. So we'd pack in with, chainsaws and all kinds of gear and equipment. So lots of hours on the trail. And I always say the trail was my teacher. I learned so much from being in the backcountry with my horse, and I travel around the country as well. And anytime I have an opportunity to see the natural world from the back of a horse, that's my absolute favorite thing. So that's a little bit about my riding. Primates. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I worked with primates for 9 years, back in Florida. And, I worked with a lady who, did, educational programs with them at schools and different, platforms, teaching people these are really not pets, and about primates. So I worked with everything from chimpanzees, orangutans, rhesus monkeys, capuchin monkeys. I was a foster surrogate mom for lots of baby monkeys over the years that were going to be used for different, like the Simian Society, where they would train primates to help disable folks. And, there was certainly a little commercial side of it as well, which I absolutely now, as a grown adult, I don't really condone at all having exotics as pets. But there would be photo shoots for greeting cards and magazines. So, primate handler for 9 years. It was a crazy passion of mine from when I was a kid. In fact, my dad thought, wow, if we don't get this kid a monkey, like she's going to have problems. So I think I was 8 or 9 and parents bought me a monkey. We knew nothing about it. Should have never done that. It wasn't a bad experience, but, learning more as an adult and a conscious adult about animal welfare. They're not pets, but it was a phenomenal experience. And, just to have that up close and personal time being with primates really was a gift and magical. So I always feel very honored to have had that experience.
So did you come to primates before you found horses?
Kind of simultaneously. I think when you're an animal lover, you love all animals. I came to working with primates before I actually had horses of my own, but I certainly had interest in horses and pretty much any other animal that you can imagine. So, yeah.
That is really fascinating. So you're primarily known for yoga, and I'm just curious, like, what stage of your life did you discover yoga, and how did you integrate that with your horsemanship and riding?
Thank you for asking that. I always say my focus is really on overall equestrian wellness, and so many things fall under the umbrella of that, yoga and yogic mindset being one of those things, because I've been a yoga teacher of about 33 years now, and I published a book through Horse and Rider Books called Yoga for Riders. I did kind of get coined for that, but there's a lot of other things that fall under equestrian wellness. My early days, I was a ballet dancer. I danced from about 7 years old till about 19, semi-professionally, those latter years with a ballet company, and really didn't know a whole lot about yoga. I did not grow up in a yogic family, yet I had some interest in stretching and breathing and being meditative and contemplative at a very, very young age. And when I really formally first got introduced to meditation, I was about 16 or 17. Believe it or not, I was in a high school psychology class, and there was a segment on meditation that fascinated me, and I dove deeper into that. I was seeing how using meditation in my life, even at a small level, was impacting my dance routines, my organizational skills. So I was seeing there was value to it. And then a couple of years after that, I got more formally introduced to yoga. Fast forward, being involved in local community classes led me to meeting my teacher, my guru, Yogi Amrit Desai, who is now 92 years old and still teaching and a wealth of knowledge. And when I really formally got introduced to the practice, it just felt like coming home. There was some cellular part of me that this was very familiar to. And then I started seeing how much of what I was doing on my yoga mat was the same stuff I was doing in my riding. So, for example, I'd be on the mat and I would be in a yoga posture and it didn't feel quite right. So I would adjust and self-correct. And then I would notice I would be riding my horse and feel like, my weight's not symmetrical in each stirrup. My shoulders are a little up under my ears. So I was starting to take the body awareness from the mat and using that in my saddle. And then I was also using the breath work of yoga. I was noticing on the mat, if I got in a challenging yoga posture, I would hold my breath or shallow my breath. And then I was noticing I'd be on a trail ride. I'm getting ready to do this slippery creek crossing that was making me nervous. And I would notice I would shallow my breath or hold my breath. So I started doing yogic breathing while I was riding. And then so much else of it, just the energy awareness, going to meet my horse at the barn when I'm in a more collected, integrated place was making a huge difference on my interactions with my horses. So taking that yogic mindset, energy awareness, body awareness, breathing awareness, and really transferring that from the mat to the saddle. That was sort of an organic process. And then about maybe 15, 16 years ago, I actually formed my program called Body, Mind, Equine, which teaches how to use the whole of yoga to improve our horsemanship from ground to saddle. So that's a little bit about that journey.
I'm just curious. I'm assuming that many of our listeners have maybe never formally tried yoga, or, I think people have great awareness of it just because there's yoga studios in probably almost every major city and suburb and even small towns. But if you were going to have an opportunity to encourage listeners who've never thought that they were the type of person that would try yoga, to give it a shot, because we're coming up to a new year, and so it's a good time to try some new things. But like, if you were giving a persuasive speech to our listeners to tell them reasons why they would benefit from yoga, maybe particularly overall health, but then also as an equestrian.
Absolutely. So I like to think of yoga as a user-friendly practice, right? You can have beginner, intermediate, advanced students, different ages, different belief systems, all in the same class, because you're really working from where you are, working mindfully at your own pace, and it's not competitive. I always say yoga is not about flexibility. That's the biggest misconception, because that's what we see on the Instagram post, somebody in a one-arm balance with their leg over their neck. And the fact is, the average body does not do that. I've been danced ballet. I've taught yoga for 30-something years, and my leg still doesn't go over my neck. So that is not the goal of yoga. So not about flexibility, not about athletics, not about competition. What is yoga about? I would say, in one word, it's an awareness practice. It's an opportunity for us to become more aware of ourselves, body, mind, spirit, energy, emotions, and then carry that heightened awareness with us off the mat into all that we do. And that's really more what yoga is about than the athletics. And then, of course, there are the physical benefits of improved circulation, range of motion, flexibility, strength, balance, and those all tie in really nicely as well for equestrians, because we do need to be strong, flexible, and balanced to be riders and to take care of our horses. So yoga, true yoga, does focus on those three aspects of strength, balance, and flexibility. So it's they work synergistically together. And, I have so many people that have said, well, I can't come to your retreats or your class because I've never done yoga, or I'm a little bit out of shape. And really, most people find when they come to my classes, I have a very gentle and practical approach, and they're quite able to do the practice, sometimes with modification. So one of my goals as an expert in equestrian wellness is to make yoga and horsemanship accessible to everyone, regardless of what that looks like. So if your yoga looks like chair yoga, that's okay. If your horsemanship is grooming your horse or, doing in-hand work, that's okay. So I really like to make yoga and horsemanship feel all-inclusive and not intimidating, because there are so many brands and styles out there. It can be confusing for a new person getting into yoga. And then again, those pictures we see on social media are not the average body. So I like to invite people to give it a try different instructors, find somebody that works for what you're seeking. Some people love more of the power yoga, the more physical forms of yoga. I personally teach a more gentle, meditative, mindful style of yoga that interweaves the breath work, the meditative awareness, the mindfulness into the stretches. So really focusing on what I call the whole of yoga.
Cathy, you just gave me something you said triggered this memory that I had that was hilarious. And if I may, I want to share. So I'm not doing yoga regularly, but several years ago, my local 24-hour fitness had some yoga classes. And I went with a friend, and Holly's going to crack up at this. And so first of all, there was the learning curve of the names of the poses. So okay, we're doing pigeon, we're doing turtle, we're doing all these things. And so I'm trying to watch, and I'm not I'm the kind of, my background's education. I'm not someone that can just see a movement and mimic it. I almost need a poster that has step 1, step 2 for each move. But long story short, this instructor, it wasn't my first class, but it was when I was newer trying to do this yoga thing, they did a series of all of these moves, and it was like 10 minutes. And I remember just struggling, and it was so fast. And it was like, we're doing downward dog, and now we're doing warrior two, and now we're doing, and I was just like always the one in the class, I'm sure, that was like the last to attain the position. And then about 10 minutes in, the instructor goes, well, now that's just great for our warm up. Let's really begin. And I looked at my friend, and I was like, warm up? Like, I was already, I'm sure, dripping in sweat. So it sounds like what you're saying is if people work with you, they won't have that experience, or there are different types of yoga classes and practices. So no one will find themselves in a situation like what I was in.
No, and I'm sorry for you that happened. It is kind of a funny story. I guess for me, I feel like, life is moving so fast. We're all on this super fast-paced treadmill of this, what's next, what's upcoming. And we miss the moment because we're projecting onto what's next, or we're dwelling in the past. And yoga practice helps to teach us to be in the present moment. So when I'm teaching yoga, I might do a posture on one side and then have the person, have the class stop and close your eyes, breathe, feel. What did you just do? Where do you feel movement of energy? Where do you feel release of tension? And does that side feel any different than the other side? So really a more, like I said, slow and meditative. I like to use the mat as an opportunity to slow down. And I also teach in my programs and in my book about the parallels of yoga and horsemanship. And that's one right there, slowing down. If we can learn to slow down in our yoga practice, and we can learn to slow down when working with our equines, they really appreciate it. And we all have a better, more fruitful, more present experience. And I'm not knocking the faster types of yoga, but for me personally, and the age and where I am in my life right now, I'm not looking to get on the mat and do anything fast paced. That's the rest of my life. And the yoga mat to me is the counterbalance where I can actually slow down, focus on the breath, focus, what's happening in my body. Where am I holding tensions? How can I move into those places to release those tensions? So yeah, it is definitely a more mindful practice. And I really do gear the stretches and even the conversation in class to equestrians. So a lot of things I'll talk about, symmetry on the mat translates to symmetry in the saddle, or, here's a great stretch to do if you've been riding a couple of hours and you're feeling upper body tension. This is a great stretch to do either on your mat or even while mounted. I teach some gentle movements while mounted as well. And, you were saying also you liked to have, like, for you to have those steps, like to see a picture, an image. And that's the beauty part about Yoga for Riders that was published by Horse and Rider Books. We really break down each step into, instructions and images. So it makes it very doable.
Holly, have you ever tried to do yoga? I know you lift weights.
I do. Well, when I was a gym member back before I had my child and had time to do things like drive to a gym for an hour a few times a week, I did. I loved going to yoga class. Like, I am the least flexible person. I mean, since the time I was a child, I could not do anything bendy. So I would totally agree with that it is so beneficial. You just feel like your muscles are getting stronger. And I am the absolute worst. Susan, I know you had a big thing about like breathing while riding, and you posted about that on your blog. And that resounded with me because I feel like when I'm sitting at my desk working, I'll just be like holding my breath for no reason. Like, and then I realize, oh my gosh, I haven't like taken a deep breath all day, literally the whole day. So that like breathing, consciously thinking about breathing is so important for me personally. And I do love just doing the yoga. It just feels so good. You feel like, it's both stretching you, but also strengthening you at the same time. Like, it is exercise, which I like, but it's also relaxing. So it's kind of got everything going for it. So yes, I'm a big fan. Wish I had time to get back into it. Hopefully I will in the next coming soon sort of time frame. But even at home, I think, Cathy, maybe you can give us some advice about someone that can't go to a gym with a teacher and instructor, like how your book would help with that, or tips for that would be awesome.
For sure. I live remotely. So, for me to go to a yoga class would be, very inconvenient. So I do love my home practice and I create a space. There's actually a chapter in my book about creating your personal practice. I find to me some of the richer yoga that I do is at home versus in a big group setting because I can really gear it to what my body needs that day. So I always say, set your goals realistic. If because your life has a lot of moving parts to it, that you can't take an hour a day to do yoga or an hour or several times a week, I would rather see you spend 15 or 20 mindful minutes on the mat doing nice, gentle stretches, breathing, really tuning in, dialing inward, and having a good session versus being on the mat for an hour where you're looking at your watch the whole time and thinking about all the things you have to do. So I say, make it doable, break it down into, those bite-sized pieces. And you may find that some days you do have a little more time and you want to spend more time on your mat. But I think making it doable, listening to your body, yoga should never be painful. If you're feeling anything more than challenge or discomfort that you can't breathe through, you're too far into the pose, which is not beneficial. And then, there is so many ways now that we can have support at home. I have a couple classes, free classes on my YouTube channel. I have an online course through WeHorse. That's a really complete and thorough course that does have a strengthening, flexibility, balancing, hip segment, breath work segment, meditation segment. So there's so many modalities that we all have access to now in our homes. And I think the important thing is to not make it daunting. And again, just like what is that realistic time frame that you can commit to incorporating that into your life. And, you were saying you could feel your muscles relax and yet get a workout. And that's very true. And then also at the end of yoga, we do Shavasana, which is a deep relaxation. And it's really what I call a time to stop and celebrate. That's also one of my parallels of yoga and horsemanship, right? We accomplish something with our horse and we're thinking about what's next, and we don't stop and celebrate. And I always say in yoga, at the end of class, that's what we're doing. We're stopping and celebrating. We're getting still, even if it's for a few minutes, and we're allowing all the goodness of that class to soak into our cells, our muscles, our nervous system, so it continues to benefit us on into the day. And early on, when I first started taking formal yoga classes at maybe age 17, 18, I was not only noticing I felt good in the class, but I was noticing for days after the class, my mindset was different. I felt less reactive. My nervous system felt calmer. So it was a way to kind of notch down nervous energy. My focus was improved. I was more body aware. So I always say the class doesn't end like right at the end of class. There's residual effects for sure.
When you were talking, Holly, a minute ago about your experience with it, you triggered another memory. And when I was going to yoga, I think I was going about once a week for maybe a year or so. And I would always feel taller when the class was over. Now, I know I didn't grow, but for some reason, the way I walk, I just remember even in the midst of it when it's like, oh, my wrists are hurting and I need to take a little break and, child's pose. And then at the end it was like you said, like, whew, I did that. And I just felt taller for some reason.
You probably were a little taller because so much of yoga works on the spine, the vertebrae, and it's about keeping that healthy space between the vertebrae. So, you may have been a little compressed before class, and then after stretching out, you created that space. So kind of like chiropractic, there is that little bit of a adjustment in our posture after yoga for sure.
Well, you're talking me into looking to get back into doing some yoga in the new year, Cathy. So thank you for that encouragement.
You're welcome.
Switching gears a little bit, you recently had a very cool article in our magazine, Horse Illustrated, and it was about gift ideas for equestrians. And I was just hoping maybe you could give us a little rundown on what you're thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for people who haven't read the article, maybe a synopsis.
Yeah, exactly. So I have always been a fan of giving experiences, and I think that's kind of where this article stemmed from my own personal experiences, nieces and nephews, and my stepson, especially when he was younger. I felt like all these kids always had like so much stuff, and like another toy or another game is just going to get tossed out. So I was always the advocate of like giving experiences, and so I'll tell a short story here. One time I have twin nephews, and we used to do, my husband and I and friends would do horse camping, and the boys had never done horse camping. They've been around my horses. And one year I gave them a little handwritten gift certificate. Aunt Cathy is going to take you on a horse camping trip out at Cataloochee Valley in the Great Smokies National Park. Well, of course, they were a little nervous, and we hauled horses out there and set up tents, and they rode, and there were other kids there that came along. And at the end of the weekend, my nephews, who probably were about 9 years old at the time, said, "Aunt Cathy, that was the best thing we've ever done." And it was they were so sincere when they said it. And that just warmed my heart. Like, wow, that experience meant a whole lot more than gifts. So that's one of the things I reference in my article that's in your November, December issue is, think about gifting equestrians maybe something they wouldn't do themselves, right? Maybe, like, for example, I lead horse and yoga retreats. So maybe buying them a little gift certificate to a retreat, or maybe to a clinic, or maybe even an experience of like an online course platform, or even a subscription to a publication, to a magazine such as yours. So these are more, embodied experiences that people can have. So I've always been an advocate of experiences for sure. And then also just creative gift giving. I think it's so important that we all stay true to our budget. I think we can easily get caught up in the media-driven version of the holidays that, you have to give your friends and your family these expensive gifts bought from here, bought from there, and commercials are kind of bombarding us with like what we should do. But giving something, for example, if you're on a tight budget, maybe if you can't do a gift of an experience, maybe something like make a little coupon book and offer, some horse sitting for your friend, or help them clean their tack, or groom their horses a little bit for them, just to give them those little breaks. Gift cards to feed stores, tack stores, or even to the vet or the boarding facility. Great contribution. Any equestrian would really appreciate that. I'm also a big fan of like journals and planner books, goal books. There are so many out there now that are equestrian specific, that have little prompts to help you with your goal setting and your intentions. Again, there's online learning courses that you can, buy somebody a membership to. Enrichment gifts, books, nurturing meal kits is something I mentioned in there. It's winter in a lot of places. And if you're doing winter horse tours and you have quite a few horses, it's exhausting, it's tiring. You come up, you're cold from the barn, and it's like the last thing you feel like doing is like, what am I going to cook for supper? And a friend did this for me. She bought me a meal kit that lasted like throughout the winter. Every week I'd get, 3 or 4 boxes, and like everything was cut and prepared, and it was just so cool. And, I would have never thought of a gift like that unless I was given one. So I always say, kind of think outside the usual gift box, because there's so many different ways that we can again, be of service or think of kind of a unique gift. And one other thing I mentioned in the article is meaningful gifts, right? So often we just go to the store and, you buy something and maybe it's just, it looks pretty or whatever. But I like to do gifts that are thoughtful and meaningful. Recently, one of my senior horses passed, and a friend of mine, actually she was a retreat participant, sent me this beautiful wind chime, and it has his name on it, and I have it hanging on my porch, and every time the wind blows, I think of my horse Samson. So something that's meaningful. It's so easy to produce books now. You can go on, Shutterfly or Vistaprint and do a little coffee table book of somebody's, horse pictures that you can pull off of Facebook or wherever. So lots of fun and clever ideas for equestrian gift giving.
Actually, to follow up with that, every year there is a woman at the barn where I board my horse, and she sends out an all-call email to my trainers, students, and the boarders, and is like, okay, send me your photos. And she puts together a coffee table book. And so that's, a record of the different shows and clinics and fun times around the barn. And it's special. And there's several of them in the viewing room of the indoor arena, and they're on the coffee table, and it's kind of fun to flip through there. So I really like that idea of the photo book.
Yeah, I love that. And even calendars, you can easily go on these platforms and make like a little monthly calendars where you can plug in different pictures. So I think there's so many easy and creative ways to do things that it doesn't have to be our traditional gift giving.
And I liked your ideas that I had never thought of. I'm a practical girl. I don't want to have any more stuff to store in my house because it's very small. So
same.
Gift cards. I always am baffled by people that don't like to get gift cards because I think they're so practical and wonderful. You'll definitely use them. If someone's spending money, you want to make sure it gets used. At least that's how I feel. So, just a credit toward their boarding or their vet, like, amazing. I never would have thought of that. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the outside the box ideas.
Outside the box, for sure. And yeah, like you, I think the older we get, the less stuff we want. Like you get to that point in your life, you're starting to pare down, right? So it's like, I don't really need another little knickknack or something. So yeah, gifts from the heart, and really think about the person, like what would speak to them. And everybody would love to get a framed picture of their horse or a coffee table book of pictures of them and their pony. So I enjoy the holidays. I really don't buy into the whole commercialized version. I live here very quietly and remotely in the Smokies. And, even with us neighbors, it's more of giving things from the heart rather than the high dollar store-bought items that you're then in debt for, through February or March. You're still paying off the Christmas gift. So that's also, a good reason to think creatively.
I have one other idea. A friend of mine has a November birthday, and she lives in a high rise in Chicago and doesn't want stuff because, it's a small footprint there, and she's really difficult to buy for. And so I went to my local farmer's market that I go to frequently. This isn't horse related necessarily, but it would work for someone who likes horses. And I bought like a jam, and I bought local honey and some other things. And what was really cool is, I put it all in a cute gift bag. And then as she was taking it out, I said, well, that honey is from Dan, the honey man who does his honey business with his friend from high school that he was in band with. And so it was like the story behind these people who created the different things. And she thought it was pretty special. So that, I'm assuming most places have farmers markets. They could get some items and throw them in a bag and put some cute paper in there.
For sure. Consumables are great. I'm also practical as well. Again, don't want more stuff around, and shopping local, like here in the Appalachians, we have, little local artisan shops. And they really appreciate the business if you come in and buy some local honey or buy a homemade candle or something, where it's so easy anymore to shop on the big box stores online and on Amazon. But yeah, to actually stop in somewhere and pick up something like that, that's a great idea as well.
Cathy, maybe as an example of just leading us through a breathing exercise or something so we can all get a little recentered going into the crazy holiday time, and just kind of setting your intention for the new year. I know with another one of your articles from, I think it was 2 years ago, we talked about just having that, intention, what your goals are going to be with your horses, with everything, just kind of getting our mind quiet. If you could just walk us through just a little sample of how you do that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And before I lead that, I do want to talk again about goals, because it is the time of year people are setting those New Year's intentions. I'm not a big fan of calling them intentions, but more more goals, or I guess I'm not a fan of calling them resolutions. So more intentions or goals, I think, would be more accurate. Again, setting those realistic goals, making sure they're your goals. And one way to do that is to get quiet. In one of the quotes in my book, I say, right thought and right action blossom from clarity. So a lot of times we're like, well, what kind of goals do we want to set? There's always that we can lose 5 or 10 pounds. We're going to exercise more. We're going to eat better. But really to get quiet, to get still, and to go inward and say, what suits me in my life right now? What changes or course corrections can I make for better wellness, better equestrian wellness, which also makes us better for our equine partners. So I think getting still is really important, and make sure they're your goals, that you're not borrowing opinions of your friends on what you should and could be doing. Make sure these are things that really speak to your heart. And in goal setting too, it can be, again, setting realistic goals, because if we set that bar too high and then we don't meet that bar, then we end up kind of frustrated and disappointed by February or so. So realistic goals of what that looks like for you, maybe even having an accountability partner, community, some kind of support system to help you attain your goals. And really, I think it's about evaluating what's working and what's not working in your life right now. So I'll be happy to lead us in a little experience like that. So I'm going to invite your listeners to close their eyes, find your way to a comfortable position. Certainly, if you're driving, do not close your eyes, or if you're listening on the back of your horse, that's my disclaimer. So just allow your eyes to close if you're in a comfortable seated position. Take a few deep breaths and allow your shoulders to drop from your ears. And bring your attention to your jaw. Notice if you're clenching at all, and if so, relax, release the jaw. Mouth closed but not clenched. And just breathing some full, slow, steady breaths, allowing your awareness to go from outflowing to now inflowing. So I invite you to come down from thinking and doing and drop into a place of just being and just breathing. So with eyes closed, awareness inward, allow the breath to grow slow and deep and steady. And let the breath begin from the bottom of the lungs upward. So feeling as you inhale, the belly expand, the ribs, the chest, in that order. And then as you exhale, reverse that. So the chest relaxes, the ribs slightly contract, and the belly pulls in at the end of the exhalation, squeezing out any stale air and making room for the next breath. So as though you were filling a bottle of water under a faucet, it would fill from the bottom up. So just staying with that for a couple breaths, belly, ribs, and chest expanding, contracting, and allow your mind to rest on the breath. Anytime a thought or a distraction trickles in, notice that, and redirect your mind back to the breath. Just sitting in quiet, breathing slow, steady, rhythmic breaths, calming and refining the nervous system, energizing and oxygenating your entire body, quieting the mind by giving it a focal point. And then dropping into that place of deep peace and inner stillness. And from that place, I invite you to ask yourself this following question, allowing the answer to emerge from inner knowing, not from mind. What goals would I like to set in the new year to bring myself into better alignment? What goals or intentions would I like to set to bring my body, mind, and spirit into alignment in the new year? And just remain inward and quiet and try not to make anything happen. Just be present if any inner knowing arises. Inner voice can speak to us in a thought, a feeling, a word, a vision. And just listening to that inner voice about how to create balance in your life. And then once you have become clear on that, perhaps after our session, you'd like to maybe do a little journaling and write about that and think about some realistic and practical ways to move toward your goals, and incrementally is fine. Baby steps count. And then just thank yourself for tuning into today's podcast, for enriching your life through learning, through growing, through community. Thank yourself for spending these few inward moments as a little reset. And as you move into your day, I invite you to notice if by just taking this little bit of inward time, perhaps there's a shift in your energy, your actions, your reactions. And I always close by saying namaste, which means I honor your inner light. Namaste. And then thank and appreciate yourself for taking time to do something nurturing for your body, mind, and spirit. And as you feel ready, slowly allow the eyes to open. Coming back to the breath and just noticing if you feel any different, any shift from that little bit of inward time. So I hope that you all enjoyed that, and I hope that it also shows that a little bit of mindful meditation, breath work, a little bit of yoga postures, a little bit can really go a long way. It's kind of like hitting that reset button.
Thank you, Cathy. I honestly feel a million times better, more relaxed. I've breathed, so I feel great.
Good. Breathing is good. So, I always say we breathe all day long, but we don't always pay attention to the breath.
And it does. It just clears your mind, and I think we can all agree that's a good thing, having more time to push out the busy thoughts. It's very hard to do, but just taking that time every day, very helpful. And then we definitely want people to know where they can find more from you. I know you have your book, Yoga for Riders. You have courses. You have retreats. Tell us a little bit more about how people can find out about those.
Sure. So my website is Cathy with a C, CathyWoodsYoga.com. And pretty much everything is there on my website. Kind of in a nutshell, yes, I do lead retreats, anything from one-day retreats to multi-day retreats. I'll be in Arizona in January, which is a really great and empowering start to the new year. I do a retreat at White Stallion Ranch called Embrace Your Cowgirl Spirit Through Body, Mind, Equine. And not only do we do all this Yoga for Riders work, but we also talk in those retreats about women's empowerment and what the spirit of the cowgirl means. How do we embody that in our daily lives? So I have that retreat as well as several others like that throughout the year. My online courses, again, that's on my website, but that's through WeHorse. I also have an audio visualization series for equestrians called In the Moment. That's through Horse Class. Yoga for Riders book is certainly available through Horse and Rider Books. And a few other different services that I offer. I do private remote sessions. So if somebody feels like, hey, I'm too intimidated or I don't have the time to go to a yoga class or a retreat, I do offer virtual private sessions that can be geared however the person wants. So my goal, again, is to help make yoga and horsemanship accessible to everyone. So CathyWoodsYoga.com, I think, is where you'll find every little piece of what I offer. And if you want to jump on my email list, there's a way to do that on there. And then social media, of course, Cathy Woods Yoga, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I think it's the Cathy Woods Yoga. And there is some complimentary content on there that I think people will enjoy, from breath work to discussions about the parallels of yoga and horsemanship, and as well as a few yoga classes.
Well, sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Today we have Michelle Murch from New Hampshire, SPCA, with us to tell us about a very cute Palomino adoptable horse. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
You look cold. Is it cold in New Hampshire?
It's cold. It's about 40 something and drizzling, which we need the rain, so it's okay, but it's chilly. I just came in from actually a meet and greet with one of Tilly's pasture mates. So,
yeah. Well, we want to hear all about Tilly. So tell us the info.
Okay, so Tilly came to us about 2 years ago now. She was adopted out for about a year and a half, and she came back. She's about an 8-year-old Palomino pony. She's sassy. We call her our Barbie pony because that's how she acts and looks, and her blonde mane is always flying about because she's, a fun little pony. But she is a really sweet girl. She really hasn't had a chance to shine because she's been bounced around a little bit over the past few years. Her last home, they were unable to financially care for her anymore. So it wasn't anything that she did. She came back to us, and actually she's grown up a little bit. And I think she's really ready to, find her forever home. So she's 14 hands. She's a perfect size. She's a pleasure in hand. She sometimes likes to play a little game when you're out in the pasture of, you don't want to catch me, but she always comes around after a brief game of tag. But she has ring bone. She's been diagnosed with ring bone. So under any sort of work, she comes up lame. That's why she was originally surrendered to us. They had different aspirations for their horse, and Tilly couldn't live up to those. So we took her in knowing that there's still a lot of potential just because she can't be under saddle. There's so many people now that enjoy their horses from the ground that I think Tilly would be that perfect horse. She could do in-hand trail, she could do liberty, she could be a therapy horse. She does love being groomed, and she definitely just needs to make that connection with a person. I did speak to our veterinarian today, actually, and we're going to work towards having her potentially be able to be a lead line pony, walk only. She's really cute. She'd be really, a pretty little pony for some little girl or boy. So we know she was under saddle, so it shouldn't be very difficult to establish that, as long as everybody knows it's just tack walking. There's no jumping or, carrying on, but she could certainly be a really fun little horse for a family.
And how would you describe her in a setting with other horses? Is she like the boss mare, or what's her?
She gets along with everyone. She is typically middle of the herd. If there are more dominant mares around, she'll be at the bottom. But she is, I would say, pretty much right now she's with 2 mares, and she's exactly in the middle. One of them is very bossy and the other one is very submissive. So she's middle of the pack. She doesn't have a mean bone in her body. Even when she's trying to be bossy, she really isn't all that good at it. Just some horses respect her a little more than others, I guess.
And with her condition, having the ring bone, which would make her not ideal for someone who wants to do heavy duty riding, and like you said, maybe she could do lead line. Is there any upkeep, or is there any kind of medication, or what would the potential owner need?
Now, she's not on any medication. She's actually completely pasture sound. We haven't seen her take a lame step because she hasn't been in work with us. And we know that that's not appropriate for her. So she, lives her best life. She comes in the arena, and she does free lunge, and we have her do obstacles, and she loves to play with a tarp. But right now she does not require any medication. Eventually she might need to be on Equiox or, some sort of maintenance like that, as ringbone can progress as it goes, along.
Michelle, so you guys are located in New Hampshire, and I know it's November right now as we record this. It's getting pretty cold. Can you tell us more about your facility? Do you house horses throughout the winter, or does it kind of thin down, or just a little bit more about what's going on at your facility over the winter?
Yeah, no, we built an incredible facility just about 3 years ago, right while I started, actually, at the exact time I started here. We have a beautiful indoor. So we continue to do meet and greets all through the year. We continue our adoptions. Actually, we tend to not slow down much in the winter, where, we still have to take in a lot of animals, especially up here. There are a lot of situations that we end up with a lot of horses that can't be cared for. So no, we can house up to 25 horses at a time, even through the winter. And we typically do that, and we adopt out every day so people can come here. They can still see the horse where it's safe and dry. Like today, it's raining out. We just had a meet and greet in the arena because it's dry in there. And the 8 people were able to come and visit the animals there. So yeah, people can, they can check out our animals online. They can certainly schedule time to come meet. We try to facilitate, whatever way we can find our horses a great home. We try to, work to do that.
Awesome. And you guys are an ASPCA Right Horse partner, I believe. So do you mostly post your links on there, or do you prefer people to come straight to your website for the most updated list?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch is definitely our own website. Our horses have a 70-day average turnaround here, so they aren't here long. So many times they don't make it to the ASPCA Right Horse website before they're already on their way out the door. So it's best to check regularly on nhspca.org.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Michelle, so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Don't be shy. Show us some barn banter love by leaving a review, and you can tell all your friends too.